Back in, we did see a different kind of warm-up situation here in this evening's game. Where Ryan Suter did not end up taking the warm-up. Who was the actual Kessel? It was actually, Matthew Kessel. Thank you for taking warm-ups here. So we don't know if that's just because they want to give Ryan Suter, the veteran, a little bit more of a break, or is Matthew Kessel maybe the veteran? There's certainly a lot of things between Kessel and Ryan Suter as far as who can kind of jump in. But I do think you look at the situation here with Tyler Tucker, his ability to jump in on the offense, his ability to defend well. All the things on the ice are great. He scores a great goal here. I thought he defended well. He drew a penalty here as well. Took a penalty, but that's certainly kind of part of his fabric of his game. But one thing fans don't know enough about with Tyler Tucker is he's a personality. He is just such a well-loved kid in that locker room. He brings out the best in his teammates. He keeps the room light. And you need players like that in playoff stretches. So that's, to me, where he's deeply going to be missed. But again, this is kind of that next man up mentality where the best team, the elite teams, the teams that go deep, game sevens and the fans would be the first to tell you, you don't do it, it doesn't come easy, it never comes easy, and of course it's always got to be that next man up mentality, because without it, no teams end up kind of going the distance.
All right, a best of 7 is now a best of 3.
Here we go. It's what's exciting. It's what it's all about. It's a great bounce back here for St. Louis. I will say about the first 2 games, the Blues did not play even close to their brand of hockey, and they're in every game. You're pulling a goaltender, they score an empty net in game 1. You're right there at the very end in game 2. But again, you're not playing your best brand of hockey. I think they knew they had a whole next level. They come home, they bring that same hockey, that same identity, that same system format to the road. If they can, they're going to make this a doggone good series, because right now they look like the team that could not be beaten during the regular season first. But a wonderful, resilient effort here once again here in Game 4, and certainly going to be exciting in a couple games here on the stretch.
All right, Bud Light 3 stars in your work boots.
Yeah, tonight we are going to go with where I wrote them down somewhere. Where did I Oh, here we go. Braden Shed number 3. Yeah, I should have in my hand like in high school days. Braden Shed number 3. Jordan Binnington, number 2. I'm going to give Jake Neighbors number 1. Jordan was good, but doggone it, Jake Neighbors, he needed to have a game here. He's been so physical. Had a couple helpers coming in this one. A beautiful game here. Loved his goal in the first. Really changed the trajectory of this game. And work boots, I'm going to go with Tyler Tucker. I thought he was awesome. Great goal. Physical as can be. I hate to see him go down with an injury, so I'm going to give him the work boots here.
The way you lost your screw there, that's proof we know you didn't cheat in high school.
Yeah, well, I was saying, hey, you can't see it from there. You're just chirping me over there. Come on. Be nice. You're supposed to be my partner. You're supposed to be my friend.
I'm just reminding people. I'm letting you know that if anybody doubted anything, you clearly did not cheat in high school.
Well, no one wanted to cheat off me.
Because that was just a waste of getting caught.
Yeah, I was tired of being the smartest kid in class.
I understand. You don't want to even out the playing field there. You want to make sure you have the upper hand.
Alex, we mentioned this a couple times during the game, but as we throw it to you there, it's one of these things I get excited. The 12-game win streak at the end of the year, there's things that make me as a Blues fan a lot more excited, not even just about what could happen this year or the current playoffs, but really what the next few seasons are going to be like. And when I look at now a tied game, a tied series at 2-2 with Thomas Snuggerud, Neighbors, Kyrou, Bolduc, Texier was in this lineup, Toropchenko, and Broberg. Joel Hofer put him in the mix. Every one of those guys 25 and younger. And then take a look at a team that just won the President's Trophy. Kyle Connor's 28, almost 29. Shifley's 32. Iafallo, I believe, is 31, 33, somewhere in there. Niederreiter's 32 years of age. You just look at the age difference here, and this, my goodness, is this future of Brightwood for the Blues.
Absolutely, and I go back to a conversation we had with David Backus, and he was talking about how monumental that 2008-2009 season was, where they got swept by the Canucks. But he said we all learned what it took to win in the playoffs. They missed the next 2 years, but then for the remainder of his time in St. Louis, they were always a playoff team that went deep. So that experience can be monumental, especially for those young guys like you both were talking about. Thank you both. We will talk to you guys from Winnipeg in game number 5. Chris Gerber sticking around with us a little bit longer for our extended post-game coverage. But that was our post-game breakdown with Chris Gerber and Dylan Fitzgerald. Take a break. We'll come back. We'll give you some final numbers on this one, our Bud Light play of the game, and then we'll get into our extended post-game coverage. Here, 5-1, Blues take down the Jets. Alex Ferrario with you. This is St. Louis Blues.
Woo!
So instead of that, the Winnipeg Jets decided to go with Eric Comrie there in the third period. So Robert Thomas, Jason Connor Hellebuck in the second game in back-to-back games. And I got some numbers on the Winnipeg Jets, which we'll get into our extended post-game coverage. The struggles of Connor Hellebuck and really the struggles of the Blues. So we'll get into all of that coming up in a bit, but we'll make Robert Thomas tonight's Bud Light play of the game as the Blues take down Winnipeg 5-0. Some final numbers in this one, and then we'll get into our fourth period. Our Ted Drews 3 takeaways. We're going to hear from Scott Arniel on the Winnipeg Jets side, from Jim Montgomery. We got Jordan Deacon down in the Blues locker room, Brandon Kiley down in the Winnipeg Jets locker room, and PK will be back up with us too in our extended post-game coverage. So we'll get into all that in just a bit, but the numbers in this one is the Blues are outshot 31-24. Face-offs slightly in favor of the Blues, 50.9 to 49.1% in favor of the Jets. Both sides over on the Ameren Missouri power play, and the Jets with more penalty minutes. Both sides with 40 hits, the Blues with 20 blocked shots. So we'll get into all that a little bit later on with our extended post-game coverage, but that will close it down for us tonight here on the St. Louis Blues post-game show. Now, next up for St. Louis, another 2 days off before they get back in action, this time traveling to Winnipeg. Blues will be back at it on Wednesday for game number 5, with puck drop beginning at 8:30. In all reality, a little bit after 8:30 puck drop will be the Blues and Jets from Winnipeg. So on Wednesday, we will talk to you for Chris Herbert, for Joe Vitale, for Jim Hewer up in our broadcast booth, Jordan Deacon and Brandon Kiley down in the locker rooms, and of course our great producer, Graham Francis, back in our network studios. I'm Alex Ferrario. Blues defeat the Winnipeg Jets 5-1. Now push themselves back into the best-of-7 series. 2 wins apiece. Now becomes a best-of-3 that goes back to Winnipeg. We'll talk to you on Wednesday for game number 5 right here on the St. Louis Blues Radio Network. I have no idea. Okay. Gotcha. And then Jim said he put Scott Arniel in there. And then Monty's on the podium right now, so we'll put that one in there. If you want to grab Scheifele, and Arniel, maybe we'll use those. Joey's here, but we'll probably use those. Let's maybe use Scheifele with Joe up here, and then
St. Louis Blues are way more committed over the last 2 games than the Winnipeg Jets are. And I'm not even going to sit here and say the Jets were way more committed in the first 2 games. I think the Blues and the Jets were relatively very equal and even. I think the Jets were the team that got the fortunate bounces there in games 1 and 2. But St. Louis Blues, to me, right now you take a step back from the first 4 games. The Blues are a better hockey team. From top to bottom, goaltending, the depth, the scoring they're getting from their depth, the defensemen jumping in the rush, the blocking of the shots, the physicality, coaching, adjustments in game, game to game. Everything to me right now is advantage St. Louis. Special teams, their power play has been incredible. So I don't know. Everything is advantage St. Louis. Is it possible for them to continue this momentum? They're going to need it here for Game 5, but right now, all signs are looking good for this Blues team.
And Joe, BK and I were discussing this during the game. It's wild to see Winnipeg really not making any adjustments. Like, they had 2 days off before Game 3 to Game 4. You saw how active the defensemen were in Game number 3. Is that a little bit of inexperience with Scott Arniel in the postseason? Because you really did not see the adjustments that I was expecting.
You listen, I don't know. I mean, I know Scott Arniel doesn't have very much playoff coaching experience. He's been around the game a long time. He's been assistant a long time. He's seen a lot of playoff hockey, but he's never been the head guy behind the bench. Now, Jim Montgomery, this is where he thrives, in-game adjustments, game-to-game adjustments. He talked to us about that before Game 2, how he really misses it about college hockey, playing the same opponent in back-to-back nights. So this is where I think he's thriving. You look at his energy, his tone. You look at his approach on the bench, he seems completely under control. He looks like he's having a ton of fun doing what he's doing. Where I think Scott Arniel, to your point, Alex, I don't know if I've seen enough adjustments. Maybe a little bit here with Barron joining that Lowry line, but I don't know if that's enough.
Yeah.
You know, I know he's probably a little bit limited as far as players he has available. Keep in mind, Velarde did take warm-up. It is rumored that he will be joining the team for Game 5. That could certainly switch some things up a little bit. But my goodness, you shut down their power play. You shut down their top line for the most part. They did get the counter goal, but outside that, the top line was again, pretty much non-existent. You do those 2 things, and you have a goaltender that's struggling with confidence. I mean, this is the recipe for disaster for the Winnipeg Jets right now because they're not getting contributions anywhere else, and right now it's a very easy team to defend.
So on that point for Velarde, Joe, and we'll wrap up with this, and then we'll continue our breakdown. BK will hop in. If Velarde joins this lineup, yes, he's an offensive weapon. Yes, he's been a piece of that top line with Connor and Scheifele. But he also hasn't played since the end of February, and he hasn't been taking contact other than 1 practice since the end of February. It's one of those that, yes, if he gets back in, it's going to be a narrative. But if you're the Blues, that does nothing because you're kind of dictating the way that this game is being played.
Yeah, I don't know if any player can come into this series and really alter how the Blues are playing. You know, so I don't think they're going to have any saviors show up and it's going to turn the game over. You know, a little extra threat, the way he looks passes. On a power play situation where through 4 games, the Winnipeg Jets only have the 1 power play goal, and it came, or maybe the second power play goal, but it was a late one last game. Mm-hmm. But the biggest one was that Scheifele one that went off a Suter stick in Game 1, a bit of a lucky bounce. So all things considering, I think he's going to help the power play. I can't see Velarde making too much of an impact from a 5-on-5 standpoint. And I can't see any player really coming in and making a statement where it's going to push the Blues back from the brand that they're delivering right now because, like I said, Alex, they're delivering on all cylinders right now. They look like they're having a ton of fun doing it. But up-tempo, high-energy hockey, it's a group that they're rolling the dice, and they're having fun. They're playing like Cowboys. Why wouldn't you? Because you're the 8th seed. Like, you have nothing to lose at this point. Go out there, play hard, play for each other, play physical, and just roll the dice. It's amazing sometimes when you are that low seed and you just kind of have that kind of careless nature about you where you're just going out there enjoying the game, and that's kind of what we're seeing right now. It's just guys out there hamming it up, playing light, playing with fun, smiles on their faces. They're scoring some goals. They're defending hard. They're picking each other up, and they're doing it in front of this home crowd right now, which is bringing all kinds of energy and setting a great tone here on this home sheet as they move into now 13 in a row on this home ice. So it's becoming nearly an impossible place to lose, which is a pretty exciting thing.
Best of 7 now, best of 3 goes back to Winnipeg, and now, Joe, all you got to do is steal 1 game out in Winnipeg.
You got to steal 1. You have to steal 1 at some point, right? You got to steal 1 at some point. Why not make it the next one and wrap this thing up here in St. Louis?
Put a lot of pressure on that team to come back to St. Louis. Joe, always great breakdown, my man. Enjoy Winnipeg.
Thank you, Alex. Talk to you then.
All right, we'll talk to Joe Vitale then on Wednesday as he's with us here on our Take a break. We'll come back. We'll get more into this one with BK. We're also going to hear from Jim Montgomery and Scott Arneal. So we'll get to all those post-game breakdowns. Our Ted Drew's 3 takeaways coming up in a bit. Alex Ferrario with you on your home for the Blues 101 ESPN.
Another RX Watch, brought to you by Onder Law.
Welcome back to RX Watch. This alert is disturbing.
Right. A while back, we learned that companies like Johnson & Johnson use a mineral called talc in baby powder and other products.
And studies show that talc, when used for feminine hygiene, can cause ovarian cancer.
Now listen to this. RX Watch has learned that the talc they use is being mined in China.
Right, and talc mined in China contains heavy metal contaminants like chromium and magnesium, which are known to cause cancer. But China doesn't care.
So China gets the jobs and we get contaminated talc in our baby powder.
And ovarian cancer.
Right. With their specialized tests, the medical team at Onder Law can help you know if your ovarian cancer was caused by talc.
Onder Law has helped women for years with free and confidential consultation. You need to call Onder Law's pharma attorneys at 1-800-RX-WATCH.
Call Onder Law at 1-800-RX-WATCH.
That's 1-800-RX-WATCH or go to rxwatch.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon adverse.
So I understand you don't want to face any of these questions right now. It's not an easy place to be. But can we give a little credit to the St. Louis Blues? Like,
not at all.
A little bit of credit, and the answer to that is no for Mark Scheifele.
Well, and I mean, honestly, that's a little bit telling, right, where this is at right now of a sore loser's mentality on that Winnipeg Jets side, because that's not the mentality you want going into a best-of-3 scenario where you go back to Winnipeg, and Winnipeg has been the favor of the Jets on home ice rather than on the road. But let's play a little of Scott Arniel as we'll just kind of add some salt to that wound from the Winnipeg Jets perspective, who was at the podium a little bit ago.
Scott, it looked like you weathered their storm early and got the start that you wanted. What was the difference between that and then where things went off?
Yeah, it was a great start. You know, I thought that we did a lot of things that we had, you know, talked about as a group. Got off, had a lot of opportunities. Bennington made some big stops. You know, we couldn't find a way to. We finally got one, obviously, but the one with 22 seconds or 23 seconds, that, you know, that got them back in it after not playing a very good period. Even the first 8 minutes of the second, we were up and running again, and last 10 minutes we gave up 3 goals that are, you know, those are coverage goals. Those are situations that, much like the first one, those are situations that, you know, we usually handle pretty well.
Sort of have help outside of that battle?
That's just coverage. That we got stuck on the wall, and that's just a coverage thing. I mean, the guy makes it. We end up 2 of their guys at the net front versus one of ours. They make a nice play and tip it, but I'm tired of watching them make nice plays and put them in the net. But that's on us. And I look at all the goals. I mean, those are coverage goals. Those are things that we usually handle pretty well, and we didn't tonight.
Are you of the opinion that it's more about giving Connor Hellebuck his eyes back or getting another save from him?
Again, the coverage part of it, there's ways that we have to play. One is, you know, obviously, you know, if there's people getting the net, we got to get them out of there before they, you know, they try to get their screens. We got to box out earlier, those type of things. Yeah, there's a lot of, like I mentioned, there's a lot of coverage stuff that we know how to do those things. We've been doing it all year long. We just got to go back to being better at it. You know, we were good at it in the first. We did a great job in the first. We did a great job playing fast, defending fast. We did all those things. At the end of the day, you know what? They took advantage of home ice. We played 82 games to get home ice. Now it's the best of 3. You know, we put ourselves in this position. You know, we really wanted to come home, you know, either winning it or up 3-1. We're not. Now it's a best of 3. Our best players have to be better than their best players.
You talked about the uncharacteristic coverage mistakes. Mark described it as he thought the team kind of unraveled.
Sorry, just give me a second. I can't really hear what you're saying there.
You were talking about the uncharacteristic coverage mistakes, and Mark had described it as he thought the team kind of unraveled. Is there an understanding maybe of why that's happening in this?
Well, we unraveled in the sort of the last 7 or 8 minutes of that second period. I don't know if it's, you know, we're the moment we're at or whatever, but it's uncharacteristic of our group. We're so good at how we defend, and I thought we did a really good job of it for close to 30 minutes. We played to them other than giving the goal up at the end of the first period. But, you know, those are things, you know, we're just going to continue. We got to hammer it away. We can't, there's nothing we do about it. We go back and look at it, talk about it, and make sure that, you know, that we handle these situations better than we did tonight.
So, to that point, Scott, what are the things that you lean on?
I'll keep that one to myself. That's our strategy for the next game, so I'm not, you know, I understand your question. I'm just saying, like, there's stuff I'm going to look at the tape. We're going to talk about. We made adjustments tonight, and it worked. But we didn't do it for 60 minutes, and we need to do that. Obviously, this is a really good hockey team, and they're not going away. And, you know, they're not going to give an inch. And we have to, there's things that we got to continue to build on that we did tonight, but then there's some areas that we got to improve on.
Just a couple of quick things with the lineup. How close was Velarde to being a player?
He was a game-time decision, so he's closer. He's off the injured reserve. He's close now. So
just a quick one on defense. I know you said you had a couple guys banged up. Was Logan one of those guys?
That's where we are with this series. So I'm not talking injuries, but that's they're probably having the same issues over there. You know, your guys that you play these heavy games like this, guys are getting banged up. So you know, we're just looking at, you know, making sure we got people out there that can give us what they can.
I know.
I know you mentioned the need to fix some of the coverage issues in front of Connor, but going forward, just how much confidence do you have in him, and how can returning home for potentially 2 of the next 3 games be a helpful reset?
Oh, I'm 100% confident in Connor Hellebuck. You know, his resume speaks for itself. At the end of the day, we need to be better in front of him. We need to let him see some pucks. There's a couple there we didn't get to see. There's things that we have to do to help him. He knows that he has to do things to help us, and that's how it's been all year long. So we're all in this together. You know what? It's just a situation that we got to put our best foot forward when we go home. Like I mentioned, we worked our tails off for 82 games to get home ice advantage. Well, it's a best of 3 now. Now we got to make sure we take care of business.
Once again, that's Scott Arniel, head coach for the Winnipeg Jets, and just a couple of things there hearing from him, BK, as we're back here on our 4th period. He talked about making adjustments specifically in this game, and he said it worked for about 30 minutes. And I'm not sure what adjustments he's talking about, because at no point did it feel like the Winnipeg Jets adjusted to what the Blues were doing. The defensemen were still jumping into the rush. The Jets still could not create any zone time in terms of the middle of the ice. And yes, the Jets do need to do a better job of giving the eyes back to Connor Hellebuck. But you talk about that Braden Shen goal, you talk about the Robert Thomas goal, and even you talk about the Jake Neighbors goal. Those are goals that just beat Connor Hellebuck. Now, Neighbors was a deflection, obviously, but still, it's not like these are all getting bounced off of people's butts and in the net. These are beating Connor Hellebuck point blank.
I think what he's talking about when he mentions the adjustments that they've made is defensively. They're trying to make some adjustments. And I will say, like, we all saw it coming up from or while we were sitting up here in press row. The first 30 minutes of the game, the Blues were struggling offensively. They couldn't get much of anything going, and it felt like their defensemen were making slow decisions with the puck. I mentioned that during the first period intermission. They just shots that they were previously taking in Game 3, they were passing up, and I wonder if there was an adjustment there. Maybe Winnipeg did take away some of those opportunities, and it was hard for me to see with the naked eye, and they felt it, and they're like, the shot that was there in Game 3 is no longer there.
Yeah.
But the Blues adjusted again.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is what I think the story of the series has been thus far, and it's really making me revisit my prediction for the series, is that the Blues are just making adjustments quicker, and their adjustments are working faster than what we've seen from Winnipeg. Winnipeg was the better team in the first couple of games. I truly do believe that. But it was by a small margin.
Mm-hmm.
And that was while they were at home, where they were the best home team in the NHL this year. And now, since coming here to St. Louis, the series has flipped. And it isn't just the Blues being slightly better than Winnipeg. They have completely outplayed Winnipeg to where the last 10 minutes are a formality in each of these first 2 games of the series in St. Louis. That's telling. And it speaks to where we're at with both of these teams. He was asked in that press conference, and it was a more than fair question. Where is your confidence level right now with Connor Hellebuck? The Blues have put them into that position. So whether they want to take ownership of it and say, hey, we tried to make adjustments, they worked for 30 minutes, and then, it's on us for not doing it from there. Cool, whatever. However you want to put the blame. But right now, your all-world goalie looks completely lost.
Mm-hmm.
Your team that was one of the best 5-on-5 defensive units in the league is getting slaughtered at 5-on-5 at times right now. And your power play, which up until the Velarde and Ehlers injuries were the best in the league, was the 20th best down the stretch. And in this series so far, you're 2 for 12 on the power play.
Yeah.
You're flat out getting outplayed. So I will be fascinated to see what kind of adjustments they can make going into Game 5. I expect a really impressive performance by Winnipeg, an inspired performance by Winnipeg when we get back onto their home ice. But all of these questions about them are fair right now.
Well, in defensive coverage issues is a problem for Winnipeg. Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele did not play the final 9 minutes and 18 seconds of this game, and a lot of that was dictated off of that Robert Thomas goal. He scored. I think they took about 2 or 3 shifts and then did not see the bench the rest of the game. Joey pointed this out. That's obviously a statement from Scott Arniel to his best players, much like we've seen Jim Montgomery do, but Kyle Connor was toe-to-toe with Robert Thomas on that breakaway, and he just blasts past Connor and then goes one-on-one with Hellebuck. If that's the style that the Winnipeg Jets, and again, the crazy part about all this is there were 2 days off prior to game number 3, There were 2 days off prior to this one, and then there's 2 days off prior to game number 5. This isn't like the Winnipeg Jets are banged up and struggling right now. They've got the same amount of rest that the Blues have had.
They have. They might be banged up, and they are certainly struggling.
Logan Stanley not playing tells you they're a little banged up.
Yeah, I think they're feeling some of the physicality from this series more than I necessarily expected them to. And, Alex, I think part of this is just mental. Like, I think sometimes feeling adversity, I think feeling adversity during the regular season pays off in the playoffs. And the Winnipeg Jets didn't feel much of that this year. They were the best team from start to finish in the NHL. They were never backed into a corner the way that the Blues were. Now, you don't want to be in a position where you have like a 1% chance to make the playoffs. That's not ideal. The Blues were that team this year, and it's very rare that you end up making the playoffs accordingly. But Winnipeg was great. They never really had to fight for that spot in the playoffs. There was always just kind of the expectation. They were going to be the top seed, and we'd see what happens once they get in. It's the first time the Winnipeg Jets have now lost back-to-back games by 4 or more goals since last year's playoffs. When they lost against Colorado by 4 or more goals in 2 straight games. In fact, these are the only 2 times, last year's playoffs against Colorado and this series against the Blues last 2 games, that the Winnipeg Jets have lost by 4 or more goals in back-to-back games that Connor Hellebuyck has started since COVID.
Wow.
So we're talking about a team that just flat out doesn't know how to respond to this situation because they've never had to respond to this situation. They've never been here before. So if you feel like their coach sounds a little flustered right now, that's because he probably is.
Yeah.
If you feel like Mark Scheifele sounds like a guy that has lost his wits about him, that's because he probably has. They don't know how to respond to this spot because they haven't been here since the last time that they were in the playoffs, and that ended incredibly poorly for everybody involved.
Well, how about this one from Murat Ates? The Jets have not won a playoff game after losing a game since 2019 when they played the Blues. So after they have lost a game in the playoffs, they have not won another game. They were swept by Montreal in 2021 in round 2. They missed the playoffs in 22. They won game 1 in 23, then lost the next 4 versus Vegas. They won game 1 in 24, then lost the next 4 against Colorado.
So they technically took a step this year.
Yeah.
They won 2 games.
They did win 2 games, but they still have not taken a step since 2019. And this is the adversity that you're talking about. A group of, and Joey's pointed it out, like, yes, they have players that have played in the playoffs, but you've got players that still have not gotten over that hump in the playoffs. And when you're talking about 2019 was the last time that they've responded from a loss and picked up a win, that's the concerning part. And you also don't have a coach who has that much experience in this situation.
Game 5 is everything for them.
Absolutely.
I mentioned this going into this series on how important game 1 would be because of those numbers that you're talking about, where it's like, hey, if you lose game 1 at home, there's going to be all of the same questions that start to be discussed in Winnipeg. Their media is going to be asking everything. Now, we're going back. It's 2-2 in this series. It is a best-of-3 series. But Winnipeg is the one spot where they have a clear advantage. They are the best home team in the NHL. And on home ice, they looked like the better team in this series. If they lose that game, the question will be, like, do you turn to Connor Hellebuyck in Game 6, or do you change what you're doing in net? And right now, I think that question is kind of ridiculous going into Game 5 because you're on home ice where Connor Hellebuyck has been outstanding even in the playoffs. But in Game 6, if you lose, then it becomes a real question. I still think you go down with your guy. You got to find a way to just like, hey, these are our best dudes. They've carried us here. If we're going down with him. But, man, this is a real thing now.
Yeah.
Like, the Blues appear to be in Connor Hellebuyck's head. And when they get into his head, it filters down into everybody else where they're like, oh, man, I've got to be perfect here. Otherwise, my goalie is left for dry right now, and he can't see the puck.
Yeah.
So I can't believe we're here.
I can't either, man. And by the way, Eric Comrie, a .915 save percentage on the road this season, to the point of do they potentially go the opposite direction. Real quick, BK, a couple of nuggets on the Blues side. One, that's a massive blow to lose Tyler Tucker with that injury, and I know Monty will hear from him momentarily, but said that it didn't, no update on him, and this is the playoffs. You're not going to get an update other than saying he's day-to-day.
Yeah, he said tomorrow they should have more, which is probably when you'll hear them day-to-day.
That's reevaluated, which is the ugliest word in hockey right now. But Tucker with the goal, but you also look at how he played prior to that injury. Added the physicality that the Blues have talked a lot about. Played over 17 minutes tonight. Not a bad thing for the Blues because they have a Ryan Suter who's played over 1,000 games and jump back right in. But as Joey mentioned, that's a guy you really don't like losing in this type of series.
It's a different style because Tyler Tucker, I think it's maybe the single move that impacted the series more than anything else that we've seen thus far.
Agreed.
Is Jim Montgomery going to Tyler Tucker. And the reason why is because of his ability to just get a really good shot on net from the point. We saw him score on that today, but it's more than just, even if he had never scored that goal, it's just the ability to put the puck on net like that, create chaos in front of the net, and that's been where the Blues are getting the majority of their scoring right now. So that would be a huge loss if he's not able to go in game number 5, if he's out for any extended period of time, even a bigger loss. Suter's a fine player. There's nothing wrong with having Ryan Suter in the lineup. He's been good for them all year long. It's just a different style, and I feel like they have finally found an identity. For the first time, and Tanner Hendrickson texted this to us, I think it's a great point. For the first time in the post-Dylan Holloway stretch of games right here, they feel like a team that knows exactly who they are.
Yeah.
They know how they have to win, and they know how to go out there and execute that game plan. They've done that the last couple of games, and Tyler Tucker has been a huge part of that. We'll see if they're able to continue that if he's potentially out.
Yeah, and we talked so much about the lack of even strength offense after games 1 and games 2. They scored 1 even strength goal in those 2 games. They have now scored 9 even strength goals in games 3 and games 4 to that point with this.
They've been the better even strength team. I didn't see it coming.
Well, who would have thought, right? Who would have thought that one was coming here? And then on top of it, you add in the defensemen. 14 points now by defensemen for the Blues in this series. It's the most points by a group of defensemen in the postseason right now, and you've seen the offense.
They have 50 shot attempts over their last 2 games. To put that in perspective, in the first 2 games of this series, the Blues defensemen had 25 combined shot attempts, so they doubled that up in their 2 games at home.
It's been wild, man. Let's hear a little from Jim Montgomery, who's spoke with the media a little bit ago after his teams pull themselves back into this series.
They looked like they got to the game they were trying to get to in the first and a good chunk of the second, and then every... And what turned it?
I thought in the first 5 minutes we started off really penalties, and I think they generated a lot of shots from the outside on the power play, and they were. And I thought in the second they were getting the game to their game, and we weren't having enough ozone time. But I thought we started to get to our ozone time, and I think we're owning the net front, and our goaltender's making saves.
Jim, what's the mood like? I mean, you get the neighbors goal late in the first period like that. Could you sense just, an upbeat attitude coming out of that period 1-1?
Yeah, yes. Standing at the net front, our defensemen keep pounding pucks. Good morning.
How much of a difference do you feel like it made to have that Shannon Neighbors line really have an impact offensively tonight?
The benefit of having guys like Kyrou and Shannon Neighbors on your second line is you get favorable matchups at home, and they give credit to them for taking advantage of it. Scoring at the end of the power play and getting that other big goal 5-on-5. When you see a skilled player like Jordan Kyrou being at the net front, helping create screens, your team's really invested.
Jim, we asked Justin Falk about how the defense has been a bigger part of the offense the past 2 games after nothing in games 1 and 2. He said just moving our feet. Is it physical what they've done in the past 2 games, or tactical combination of the 2? How have they been more involved the past?
Yeah, I think by them moving their feet, they get more into a rhythm of the game, and they end up getting in open looks, especially in the offensive zone, right? If they're moving their feet there, I thought we were standing still a lot in Winnipeg, and I think as a team we're moving our feet and we're getting to goal lines, we're getting numbers on the puck, and then we're able to go low to high, and our defensemen, because of the way Winnipeg does such a great job in the D zone, have a little more time if they're moving their feet to get to middle ice.
How important has that been in the past 2 games to get you where you are now?
Well, it's been really important, getting to the net front, our defensemen having a shot first attitude, has really helped us create, garbage, ugly goals. We're getting a little puck luck, but you get puck luck when you play the right way in playoff hockey.
Monty, just think back to a few days ago when you come home down 0-2. Why was your group able to remain confident and relaxed?
Well, I think we held the majority of the lead of both games in Winnipeg. So we felt we played well, but we didn't feel like we played to our identity for 60 minutes. So it gave us confidence that if we're able to play for 60 minutes, that we'd have success. It's a 2 out of 3 now. You know, both teams won at home ice. Now we got to go to Winnipeg, and, you know, we got
tonight, and do you have an update on his status right now?
Yeah, I don't have an update. We'll have more tomorrow. You know, his goal, you know, was huge, you know, for us getting the lead and being able to play with the lead. Like, I thought he was really aggressive tonight. I thought that was his best game of the 3 games. And I thought he was physical. And then his ability, like I've said it many times, but he's a really good offensive defenseman. And it shows with how he gets shots off, they don't get blocked. It's because he puts himself in a shot-ready mindset.
So there you go, Jim Montgomery talking about Tyler Tucker there. Of course, we'll find out more on an update. They're off tomorrow, but expect an update. And as I mentioned, it's really playoff hockey, so you just get that day-to-day. But one note, BK, that came from him that we've discussed here as we'll wrap up with our Ted Drew's 3 takeaways. Ted Drew's real tradition, Ted Drew's real custard, it's St. Louis. You heard him say we owned the front of the net. We owned the net front presence. And you go back to the beginning of this series, Jim Montgomery said whoever wins the net front battle is going to win this series. I thought the Blues did a good job in the first 2 games, but Winnipeg outplayed them in terms of the front of the net. This series now is going to come down to who's got that extra push in front of the net going into games 5 and game 6, which in Winnipeg, not an easy place to play.
Yeah, and it goes back to what they've been doing, which is putting pucks on net from out deep. Like it's a strange thing to say. It almost sounds like the but the Blues are finding ways to get high danger chances by shooting from further away.
Yeah.
Because what that does is it creates those rebound opportunities in front of the net. You create that chaos, you get the defenseman involved, and then boom, now you're able to, whether it be a deflection from Jake Neighbors or a guy that's right by the net who's able to take that rebound and get it off to the side, and suddenly Connor Hellebuck's controller just dies and he's not moving. Like they are finding ways to put the puck in the net after those opportunities by their defensemen. Yes, one does go in by Tyler Tucker, but it's not even so much that you're shooting to score. You're shooting for the rebound opportunities. So they've got to keep that going, whether Tyler Tucker is in or not. And then they need these forwards to continue to go to those dirty areas and to sacrifice, because it is a nightmare to go inside there. Sacrifice, get in deep, see what you got.
This quote right here, we'll end it with this from Braden Shen. Quote, "We were down and out a long time ago, and our mentality in our room is keep on playing hard and keep on playing for one another and go out there and worry about the little details and habits that are going to win you hockey games." So far, that's kind of what we did in game 2. Felt like we played really good hockey in Winnipeg and just didn't get the results. That's the difference between the Winnipeg Jets and the Blues right now.
The St. Louis Blues have been behind in this series, for 29 minutes.
Scored early in game number 2 of the 3rd period and held on to that lead. But other than that, the one other lead they had was when Kyle Connor scored today, and then the Blues have just pulverized them offensively.
Blues have been tied or with the lead for 211 of the 240 minutes that we've played so far.
So now it goes back to Winnipeg. Yeah, they've been the better team, and now it goes back to Winnipeg because you steal one. If you can steal one in game number 5, then game number 6 is going to be very difficult and could create some interesting decisions by Winnipeg, depending on that goaltending conversation. BK, appreciate you hanging around with us tonight for our post-game coverage. Also appreciate Jordan Deacon helping us down in the Blues locker room. Grant Francis doing a great job back in our network studios, and Jim Hewer up here in our broadcast booth as the Blues take down the Winnipeg Jets in game number 4, even up this best-of-7 series, and they'll go back to Winnipeg Wednesday night puck drop, an 8:30, really an 8:50 puck drop, which means our pregame coverage begins at 7:30 right here on your home for the Blues, 101 ESPN. Appreciate everyone listening in. We will talk to you on Wednesday to see if the Blues can take a 3-2 series lead, and you'll hear it all right here on your home for the Blues, 101 ESPN.
Thanks for listening to the First Community Credit Union Blues postgame show, powered by Scott Lee Heating Company
on 101 ESPN.
Sometimes opportunity doesn't knock, it revs. And when it does, you don't wait, you grab it. Right now at St. Louis Power Sports, the Rev and Ride sales event is